All right, hey guys, we should be live. While I wait for people to roll in, let me see if I can answer a petition real quick. I'll be hitting some petitions on and off to help the guys with a little bit of coverage, as some folks have some things going on. What's going on over here? Why can't I see? Oh, okay, I see what's going on. That's the chat box covering that other text box, my combat log. Okay. Hey, Thadvik. All right, let me claim this petition. I'll try to grab a couple of petitions while we're doing this stream, but I wanted to get a stream in. I wanted to get the stream in Thursday evening. Today is Saturday. And then Friday, I didn't think I was going to be able to get it. And then today, I'm hopping in just because my wife's out of town for tonight. I wanted to get in earlier, to be honest, but it was a long day, so I'm just now getting caught up. So, let me send this person a message. Ghastly, Sarinth, Pity, hey Shrimpsky, what's going on, guys? Double Stuff, hey. What's up, Craft? Hello, I have your petition. Let me know if the audio levels are okay. Classic EverQuest asks, what are the odds of getting a Stormhammer type server? What would you want to see? Like, why? What do you want? What do you want from it? Hey, Ruskin, Roger, Gunavalv, Olgo Dev, what's up? Rainy Saturday of Dev. Where are you at again? That it's raining? I thought it was going to rain today. I was hoping it was going to rain today. I didn't, when I wrapped up my garden work today, I did some volunteer work down at the garden community. That was kind of my morning and afternoon, was wrapping that up, and then it was starting to sprinkle, and I was hoping it was going to rain so I didn't have to water, so I'll have to sneak back out again tomorrow and get some watering going on if it winds up having not rained tonight. You're in Michigan. All right. Yeah, it's up north. Your climate's probably a lot like ours then. Evorer. Gotta say, guys, it's always nice to see the familiar names in here. It's cool to see new names, but it's always nice. It's always nice to see the folks that have been around for a while. Hey, Wicca Sloth. Soulful. Logo says, we've been covered in smog from the Canadian wildfires, so hopefully the rain helps knock it down a bit. Yeah, we've got folks in Canada all the way. We've got people in Ohio. And everybody's talking about the smoke. Oh man, answering petitions is cool, man. You know, a lot of comments have been made about, you know, is the model that we're using scalable, is it sustainable and stuff. And we talk a fair amount behind the scenes on that topic, just to make sure that we're, you know, doing the right thing, that we've got the right coverage. And yeah, Trent's been Trent's been pretty confident when we talk about it. And I gotta say, for the most part, you know, we can get some tougher petitions here and there, but for the most part, man, it's just helping people out. It's a lot of fun. And I think as we fix some of the like falling through the world bugs and things like that, our petition load's going to go down quite a bit, because that's the bulk of it. Just people running into the bugs that are what you would expect in a game that's in beta. Though, like we were joking about the other day, right? Like, what does beta mean for a game that's in development, that's a volunteer production, etc.? So maybe that's not the right term, beta, but in development. Let's just say that, in development. Sorry, let me clear my throat. Lake Travis finally filled up in Texas. Been getting tons of rain here. It's down to 60% last week. Man, I remember that off and on. I lived, I had a house in Apache Shores for a number of years. So I was right below Mansfield Dam. So our water level was always pretty stable, but I remember those days. We had some years where, you know, people were going in and cleaning up the lake because the water level was so down. Olga Dev said, "Let me clear my throat." What was that? What song is that from? Let me clear my throat. Dun, 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 dun. I gotta admit, it's probably the cigar I snuck out and just had before the stream. I was like, it's evening. I've had my dinner. The weather's pretty mild. Let me go sneak out on the balcony and have a little cigar and coffee. DJ Cool, had to look it up. I have to look up the song, man, because I've heard that a billion times, so I wonder which one it was. Hey, Chat Solo. Searcha. How was the wedding? The wedding was a lot of fun. That was last weekend. Went up to Hamburg to celebrate my wife's cousin's wedding. They're really close. They're like sisters. And man, it was a very cool time. Very, very pretty setup. Pretty chill. It was out on the river, and then just like a little ceremony. Then they had the restaurant right there on the river, rented out, and people were, you know, we had some food. People were having their drinks. Jasmine and I naturally drank a fair amount of coffee. I got to sit out there, smoke my pipe, look at the river, relax. Everybody there is super cool. Bunch of Hamburg punk rock folks. Rockabilly. A lot of rockabilly folks in their scene as well. Psychobilly, rockabilly. So there's some nice outfits. We got some dancing in. I like to wiggle and shake a little bit, so I was kind of luring my wife onto the dance floor every once in a while. Cause I don't care, man. Like, I'll dance. I don't need to. You know, you have to. I guess in the past maybe I was that way, but you know, you got to get your little confidence beers in or whatever to get out on the dance floor, and then you're all stiff-legged and stuff. And I was like, at my age, I don't need that shit anymore. I don't care. You know what? You don't like my dance and you think I look silly? Everybody looks silly out there. There's no pros. So, but then afterwards it was kind of funny because my wife had off all week. So it's been one of those things where it's a blessing, but it's also one of those things where we wind up getting a lot of house stuff done or running around or whatever. So it kind of impacted my development time a little bit. this week, so I feel a little guilty, but it's always nice to get stuff done and hang out with the missus. But when we came back from the wedding, she's like, because I told her we just need to learn, you know, you can learn how to dance. There's videos on YouTube. So we're like picking 3 or 4 different things we can basically do together. And so we were doing that during the week a little bit. She has a tendency to like focus on topics and go deep. So she's researching the dances that she wants to learn. So that's fun. How's my summer going over here? It's been pretty good, man. I think it's about to get rainy again for a week, so we'll see what that does to the garden. The garden's like super lush right now, so things have been growing nicely. It's been a nice balance in terms of weather, so I'm hoping the rain doesn't jack stuff up too much. We'll see. Hey Bill, what's going on? Nice to be able to turn on a Sean stream while not at work. I appreciate that. I know the hours that I typically stream are kind of whack for a lot of you guys. What's up, Dark Inside? And Crip said, cannot wait to smoke a pipe with you. Yeah, man, it'll be cool. We'll either visit stateside at some point or eventually move. We figure if we ever get to a point where we can afford to move and like get a place or whatever, the thing that we're likely going to do is like to just rent or buy an RV and then maybe spend a year or so living in various areas where we consider moving to, get a feel for it. Hey, Biscuit. Playing Crimson Desert still. Oof. I have a long way to go, and I'm over 200 hours in. I've yet to even open it. I've got it installed. I've yet to even open it. People still RV with these fuel prices? Well, I mean, you're not like zooming around town, right? You tend to get to a place and then chill. And then you're either towing a more affordable vehicle of some sort or just hanging out in the spot that you're at. Ucater said, looking forward to the Slayheim interview tomorrow. Hey, yeah, man, I always feel awkward about interviews. Like I stream with you guys a ton, and that seems that never gets to me, really. But when I do interviews afterwards, I'm kind of like, hope I didn't say anything too stupid. Hopefully that wasn't too lame. So, but Slayheim's very kind. He's a great guy, and I appreciate the time that he spent doing it. So, I mentioned to him and Marcus, I was like, I don't know how many of these I'm actually gonna do. I don't know how many interviews I want to do. It just feels weird. It's like when we're here, it's us talking. I don't feel what is it? I don't know. I don't feel like a ham. It doesn't feel self-centered when I'm just hanging out with you guys, because I'm mainly just trying to see what you guys have to say. Do my best to answer questions, though typically it's somebody else on the team that's best equipped to answer the question. But then in an interview, it's like, it kind of feels like, am I talking about myself too much? Which is weird, because I think I say all the same shit that I say in the 2 interviews I've done. I think I've said it here like a million times. So, IGT said, I can't wait to smoke out of an aluminum can with you guys. Can't wait to smoke out of an apple with you. No, I don't do that. I used to. No drinking, no drugs, man. And not even for like, it's not, if you want to have a blast. I don't. All the best for whatever gets you through the day. But like, It just, I don't know. I hit like a switch and it just kind of turned off on that front. But I do like my pipe. I've just discovered cigars, to be honest. So, and it's just, I mean, it's such a easy, because it's like a hobby. It's like shit to collect, and they look cool and they smell cool and all that stuff. So it's just dude potpourri. Terms of service question: is an overlay OCR reader like Terrasec to capture combat data permissible? The answer to this, the no bullshit answer to this, is what we don't know about, we don't know about. What we do know about, we then say you shouldn't be doing that, right? Because, and here's the main reason why, and yeah, again, there are different schools of thought on this, we get it, but the main thing we want to avoid with logging, beyond some of the, other things that you could potentially do with it, but the main thing we want to avoid is facilitating a culture in which people are pushing min-max as a common part of the normal gameplay experience, right? And so the second you're, you've got OCR reading into something and then you're sharing that with your group, right? Like we wind up seeing this stuff. So it's kind of like some of the things that get said in chat. If it's in a public channel, if it's in a group and you don't know the individuals, then you should follow the rules and be sensitive to the fact that we've got a broad audience and there's a lot of stuff people don't want to hear. But if you're in tells with your buddy, or you're in a group with, other people that you're tight with, or you're in your guild and everybody's tight, most of the time that's going to be your business. But you got to remember, if somebody in your guild or somebody in your group they get offended by certain things, or you're pushing like parses to them and blah blah blah, then you're in violation of TOS. Stuff like that makes me think gaming is ultra cooked in 2030. Dude, we don't even know what the world's going to look like in 20 or 30 years. We don't know what the world's going to look like in 5 years, right? So I'm not sweating that too much. I mean, we don't... It could be that everybody's gaming experience 10 years from now is going to be... and we had one of my former coworkers in here years ago talking about this fact. I don't know, 4 years ago, he was in here talking about stuff he was working on just on his own. He's like, soon games are just going to build themselves around you based on an understanding of your preferences and the things that you think are challenging and blah, 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 right? Like, none of us, this may be one of the last games that gets made by humans. Who knows? You never know. So, you never know, man. You never know what the future holds. Don't sweat it too much. We'll just kind of do our thing until it's pointless to do it. So we got Dark Inside, and then we have a new arrival of Lord of Darkside. But that Darkside, is that spelled like the DC Comics Darkside, or am I mistaken? IGT said, we were the last generation that played outside is going to become we were the last generation to play man-made computer games. It's very feasible. Sure. It is. Yeah, Darkseid is a character in DC Comics. I was shocked because I always thought Marvel was cooler before I started working on the DC project. And then I had a comics guru, like just hand me a stack of books. Project manager on our team. He eventually was like the EP of Overwatch. And he was our comics guy, and he just like, hey, read all this. And I went home. It was early in the project, not a lot of pressure, a lot of spare time, and I just started plowing through DC Comics, and I was blown away. Just some of the themes were so dark, and because I always thought like DC Comics was going to be hokey, you know, corny, and man, there's just some dark stuff and crazy themes and serious topics and great writing and different writers with their own takes on things and stuff. I was really impressed getting to read all those comics during that. There's Swanee. Hey Swanee, I don't know what your day is looking like, but if any of the guys are available to kind of keep an eye on the petition queue, that'd be helpful, because I'm probably not going to grab much. I've been just grabbing a couple here and there. Yeah, during the DC Comics era that we were working on, DC Universe Online, that was like when 52 was going on, and Jeff Johns and all those guys were, yeah. Forget the name of the story. There were a couple dark ones where I was like, I did not realize they were that gnarly sometimes. One was the one, it was a Justice League where they mind wiped. Well, it was basically, spoiler alert, but it's like a, I don't know, 30-year-old comic or something. Killing Joke. I was about to say Killing Joke is definitely dark, and it's like, oh wow, that's okay. That's Oracle's origin. Wow. Okay, gnarly. So Killing Joke was pretty dark. And then the Justice League one where they wind up mind wiping the guy who like sneaks into. I'm forgetting all the terms, like the terms now. I'm so bad at like memorizing stuff like this. Where he got onto the, what was their space station called? Dude, I knew all of this shit back in the day. Like I just have this thing where I just like wipe stuff out of my memory sometimes if it's not necessary. Anyways, he got up there and assaulted one of the, I think she was a non-powered individual that was kind of like a couple that was up there and hung out with the Justice League or whatever, and then they had to deal with them, and like they were mind wiping people to sort of, people didn't have to think about what had happened again and stuff, and it was just like the ethical implications of it along with like what happened and all that. So it was like gnarly. Anyway, there's some good stuff out there. I immediately just started, when we got there, DC Comics didn't have like a lore Bible for us to work with, so I just immediately I created a database with like events and any sign that I could see in game, you know, or if there was a business name or, you know, just anything like that, which a lot of times were just inside jokes with the artists and the writers. Just started creating a database of like characters, events, locations, and all that stuff so that we could deploy as much of that as possible in the game. Hey, what's going on, Penny? Weekend stream indeed. Let's get some Sean answers. I'll try. I mean, I'll try to get answers for stuff and get it out a little bit better than if I don't have the answer on hand. For early access, will character names be global across servers or unique per server? Unique per server. It would be unique per server. Unless we change that for some reason. The plan so far is unique per server. And we've mentioned potentially tying name reservation to you clicking on the server poll. So just to try to encourage you to do that beforehand. And then for people that are just known members of the community, welcome to, if this sounds outlandish, other people, welcome to small game community sort of experiences. If people come in and try to like snatch up the character names of like known individuals within our community, then we'll basically confirm with the original, air quotes, original owner, and then get that name turned over so that there's like no name sniping and stuff. I'm sure there'll be all sorts of pain in the ass things that come up on that front. Onotoro says, hey folks, I'm glad to be able to catch an actual live stream for once. I'm having a great time in game so far, but had a couple of questions. I hope I can get answers. Of the trade skills in the game currently, are they in a good place by your assessment? Can we expect something similar to deep dives with trade skills at some point? I'll answer that before continuing. They are... I think they're in a... I mean, when you say good, what's the total scale? I think they're in a good place. There's a lot of stuff that we would like to do with them still. And there's likely to be some tuning and some changes and certain complexities added over time, or interactions added over time, and then other sort of interdependencies maybe smoothed out over time. Trade skills by 1.0 or something we want to have. We want the game to just really feel as much like a place as possible, and we want trade skills to be we want trade skills to feel like a very worthwhile investment, but also feel like a journey unto themselves. So, hey Zukin, what's going on, dude? Derelict. Right, so it's one of those areas where invariably over time we'll make changes and it'll piss people off, and it's not the same as like doing a class revamp while live, but it is, so we've got to be careful there. On the deep dive question, we've actually started a process of like a trade skill deep dive, similar to class deep dive setup behind the scenes. We just haven't been able to move it forward. You gotta realize we don't have a massive team, so we don't have a massive number of systems designers, and so being able to properly support Rift and really go through and dig into this stuff and dig into balance and dig into their progression and all of that is just not something we've had the capacity to do. And so similarly with the actual class deep dives, one of the things that's eating up a little bit of our speed on the various class deep dives, even though there are multiple deep dives going on in parallel right now, is as we're looking at certain things like, you know, why does melee DPS feel this way, or why does you know, something's off with tanking or AC or whatever, then what we've got is Jahar and Zilith and Ali and Ronaf especially are really digging into some of the formulas, and we'll find that, oh man, this isn't doing what we thought it was, or wow, this stat, you know, if this stat actually carries this amount of weight in this formula, then it does that scale properly? What does that do to these other stats or variables that are a factor in there? Do we need to change that if we want to make this feel more worthwhile? Do we have the correct headroom for, you know, these various variables, factors, whatever, in these formulas? How do they scale? Are they feeling okay at like 40 to 60, but they feel shitty at the low end? You know, so one of the things I've thought about with regards to streams, and it's something that I kind of feel bad about, but I don't think it's going to change, so I can't feel too bad about it. But I there's a comment on one of the videos recently about like us not being as open as we used to be or something, and I think, okay, if you're saying just the number of hours that are being streamed, especially in the year or so, 8 months, whatever it was, prior to Nick leaving the team. Yeah, I was streaming like twice a week. You know, Nick was getting in anywhere between like 6 and 30 hours of streams in a given week. And then we had, of course, all of the other streams that are continuing to this day, Goblin, Zukin, Seabrush, and all of that. We're definitely not doing as much, right? But we're really in that period right now where it's like, we want to push hard for EA, and we've got very little time left. And so that eats into some streams, but the other factor in that is I wish I was more articulate with the details of some of the systems work that's being done. And I guess if I sat down and like, when stuff has come up and I've like looked at it and said, hey, I really need to be able to answer this, I would sit there and talk through it with Zillith or Jahar or somebody, be like, all right, here are the questions I have that are probably going to come up, just so I know it better. But there's so much information going through. And I would say I don't want to say this in a way where it sounds absolute. In my view, if you're dealing with somebody like me and I'm giving you every answer to everything, and there are some people in the past that are like the frontmen or the leaders of a team or whatever, and they do streams, if they're entering into a stream with the expectation that they're going to answer every question, that to me, given the complexity and scale of what we do for MMOs especially, they're either incredibly, like, they're one of the gnarliest people I've ever seen in the industry, and they are capable of knowing everything, or there's a chance that they're just trying to meet that expectation on stream, and the information that they're providing isn't as accurate as it could be, or isn't properly aligned with the team, or just isn't real, you know. And so I try not to do that. I've been in charge of a few projects, and my job is to make sure that answers exist, that the team have direction, especially when there is a lack of direction from like a specific discipline or whatever on the team. Essentially, anytime the team is not providing its own direction in different areas, whether it be an art director or tech director or lead designer or whatever, then if as a producer, then it's my responsibility to ensure that there's some direction there, right? And then I'm constantly working with people in order to try to understand what our direction is, while also providing like the North Star for the team. So anyway, when it comes to tech stuff, I wish I could convey the information that is like flowing through in Slack. And we've got a closed systems group where it's just constantly Jahar, Zillith, Ranaf, Ali, it's just going through stuff. And I'm easily impressed, I guess. I see some of the analysis, and they're running sims and building new tools, and there's new wonderfully colorful, beautiful charts and curves, and it's like they're digging deep into this shit and discussing things constantly in an effort to ensure that the foundation is as tight as possible, as good as it can be for the work that we're doing in areas like trade skills and the character redesigns and things like that for EA. So it's something where, at least based in my limited experience in the industry, right? I've only been on so many teams. It's some of the most impressive work that I've seen, just through effort and collaboration and communication alone. But they're doing good, you know, whether you agree with the outcomes or decisions or not. I stand by the idea that they're doing good work. And so, but hey, What's up, Cad? What's my favorite thing to work on right now in or around Eminem? Really just trying to get all the zones ready for you guys to hop in as soon as possible for prior to EA, like trying to get the deep to you guys and seeing the work that's being done there. Digging into some of the world building and stuff. I mean, a true guilty pleasure if you're to say, hey, I can just like step out of time for a week or 2 weeks and have no other responsibilities and not need, not consider that that time could have been spent elsewhere. The thing I'd love to do is just sit down and do even more world building and player facing world building, like the notes and the books and some of the various dialogues and stuff that we want to get in before EA, which some of that we're kind of stacking up towards the end so that when you get in, you've got new stuff to discover. But are the deep zones still on schedule for a little beta testing prior to EA? They are. You may wind up getting in and we may just tell you that like Great Cavern Sea is very under construction, something like that. Oh, Cad, speaking of Cad and I, we were just like kicking around Fields of the Lost the other day, and that was so much fun. Just going through and discussing it and brainstorming and looking at what was there and extrapolating some of what was there out to the zone to give it more shape and that type of stuff. So any chance that you'll test excursions before EA? So excursions, you mean expeditions? I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think so. You will encounter the pieces that we will use once you get on them, but I don't think so at this point, if I'm going to be honest with you, just because we're getting tight on time. You'll be in Fallen Watch before EA. We're talking about that right now. So, and then Fallen Watch and your perception of it, and some of what's going on in there will help us get a better understanding of what expedition should feel like. Just from a gameplay standpoint, like the moment-to-moment part of it. Gunnar Wolf said, Sean shows less rock movement VODs and I'm upset. When I glanced and saw movement, rock and movement, I thought you meant because I'm rocking back and forth. Did I not finish your question? On a total related note, would you say that the in-game economy is in a good place right now? I would say that our understanding of the in-game economy is in a good place. Hey, what's up, Baloo? Between Swanee and Jahar, we've gotten more and more tooling online to kind of monitor. And then it's always good because we kind of we'll find something obvious. We're like, oh shit, we're not monitoring this inflow. And it's been great working with Swanee, because I'll just say, hey, we're not seeing outflow in our economy reports. We're not seeing outflow on quests. And it's like, oh yeah, okay, cool, added. Or hey, now actually we're not seeing inflow properly. Cool, here you go. It's just, so that's been really nice. Ali has been on vacation. Made it out of Bahrain right as the new attack started hitting. So he is safely on vacation, but that means he's been able to like sit down and get some, when they're not doing vacation stuff, like very focused programming time, and that's been cool. So I will greedily, when I'm chatting with him in the morning or whatever, I'll greedily be like, hey man, there's this thing that we've been, it'll be tiny things like, hey, can you add this tiny thing that has been on our list for a couple of years, but it's small, but it's just never been a priority. One of those things, I wanted to play with it today. I'll probably not do it on stream. I'll do it tomorrow morning. It's dead simple, but hopefully it'll be something noticeable for people that are not used to this kind of game. It's the ability to essentially when you're talking to an NPC and you're asking them things that they have no knowledge of, we need a generic response to let you know that they heard you. They just don't know what the hell you're talking about, right? And so that's a super tiny thing, and people listening to this be like, of all the shit you got to do, you're getting that done. But it was just like, hey man, can we get that in? And it was just a very quick thing for them to get in. But it's gonna be helpful. And then what we did was we just go, I haven't used it yet. It just got put in. But essentially it's a default sort of like response field, which then we can link to the thing that we added not too long ago, which was the random text response. So we can give it some variety in there. And since the random response table that we had set up uses everything that the regular quest or dialogue table uses, it could be like shrugs or whatever, right? Animations and stuff. So I think that'll be interesting and helpful. We're working with a new programmer candidate right now, and he just put in anchored, like the anchored tooltip concept. Essentially we can have a box here that as you're kind of mousing over stuff will give you information just over in the corner. And naturally that'll be things where you can move it around or you can turn it off or whatever. We'll add those things in over time. But like some little things like that I think will be helpful for the new people coming in that are totally fresh to the game, and we'll continue to iterate on that stuff. Excuse me. Oh shit, I forgot because I'm not getting the alerts. Is my box updating? It is. At least that got fixed. So okay, Balmer, Ruscore 27, Flex Bump Chest, thanks for the follows. Let me scroll up because I think speaking of Ruscore, let me scroll up and look at your question. Lich might be a good title for a class if Eminem does title system later. Yeah, been thinking about titles. Titles are interesting. And they could be linked to, I think, religious, like your devotion progression as well. Biscuit said, issue really is that today's MMO player base is very different from where it was in 99 with EQ. Competitive bars and player versus the game anymore. It's players versus other players in PvE setting. That's why things like logs and meters are used. I would even go out on a limb and say the majority of player base for Eminem is more performance driven than experience driven. I would argue against that one, actually. I'd be curious if that's actually true. I mean, it's totally subjective, but we get a lot of feedback from people that are like, they just want to come in and chill. Naturally, there's going to always be a competitive layer, right? There's always going to be that quadrants on the Bartle scale, Bartle chart, but still. Cowboy, I would say, speaking of, that's you right there. It's funny, I'm answering your question as you run up about Chewbacca. I would say keep him safe. Ruscore27 says, I am new to Eminem. I played WoW since 2006, and as many, I am missing the old classic part. It was fun, challenging, and rewarding. I read that Eminem can become exactly that. Since I can't play the beta right now, I'm installing right now EverQuest since I heard it is good too. The graphics are similar. How does Eminem differ from EQ? Sorry for being a noob. Don't be sorry for being a noob. We love new people. The community can probably at this point answer that better for you than I can, because I will spend a lot of time on it. I guess one way to look at it is, what we tried to do is go back and look at what were the things that motivated the people making the early MMOs, and where were they coming from? What were they using as a point of reference? And when you look at one of the things that made a game like EverQuest different than other games is just the way that they, there were some things that people think were just a sign of the times, but I think those interaction models were just something that we moved on from because it was cleaner, less friction. It just was a different take, and so that's why they moved on. We're not doing it just because like EverQuest did it, and we're not doing it just to be retro, but because we actually want to move some of these things forward. But if you look at grinding faction and the implication of just all of the various factions and the fact that working through factions may unlock the ability for you to find new content, even if it's kind of one-off content or whatever, there's that, right? So you look at factions and the depth and progression with individual factions. And again, that's not unique to EverQuest. Or you look at the interaction model and kind of typing in and using keyword triggers to move conversation along instead of everything just kind of being provided for you and you picking an option or you clicking through or whatever. When you look at the overall just sense of mystery and it feeling more like an RPG because it's coming out of like the early CRPG era or the MUDs, that's embracing that sense of possibility and embracing that sense of mystery that comes with, in some cases, just the archaic nature of the interaction models like the quest or chat system and things of that nature, not just putting everything in a pretty UI. It makes it seem a bit more, especially once you get used to or comfortable with, assuming you ever do, which is kind of how the user experience works. It's embracing this idea that you may not have found everything. Everything is not just presented for you because we're thinking, oh man, if we invested the time, i.e. money, into making this content, then everybody should experience it. We just want to make a world that feels really rich and deep, and it feels like it exists whether you're there or not. And there's always new stuff to find, and events may transpire with or without you. And so we're just trying to take all of those systems and where we think that games like WoW really grab them and smoothed out and streamlined the experience and made it very approachable, very consumable. We want to just continue down the path of having them feel, what's the best way to say this? Having them feel like there may always be just something else there to learn or something else there to discover. Right. And so what we're doing now is we're getting closer to EA, we're trying to make it so that they're a bit more approachable, but we're not grinding off those edges so that it just feels like it's, where everything's just there. You can't miss it, right? Like, yeah, I don't know. Probably doing a bad job of explaining it. I haven't answered that question in a while. I gotta get my reps back in. I was always impressed when we were doing the early EverQuest interviews, the ones that I did with the guys I used to work with and stuff, how many people would come in and ask, were all the items discovered? Were all the quests discovered in EQ, a game that's been solved for, over 20 years? So it's like, how do we build more of that into it, even if it creates friction? Hate to poke the bear, but any word on raid rework? Could you set our expectations around when they might be back? There's no poking the bear on it. It's funny, the raid topic is turned into, and I mean, this is what happens. And bless you guys for it. Bless your hearts. There's always there's so much more drama on different topics in the community than that actually exists. It's just like there was so much drama. They just pulled them out. It's like, no, they just weren't finished. And we're like, you know what? If people are playing things that don't even represent what we wanted them to be, and it's creating problems for CS, and it's just like, all right, let's take them out, and let's work on them and get them in. We're making progress slowly but surely. It's something that Ali and I have been kicking around on, and we're gonna get more of it in front of the team. But yeah, we're working on it. It's just not the absolute biggest priority of all the. We're juggling a lot, so it's like we're just kind of chipping away at it. And we want to get different. We want to try to get some good representations of each of the different types of encounter in and available for the team to look at, for you guys to look at, because you've got to understand it's not just the existence of like a raid. So just putting a dragon in a zone isn't the goal. And when we look at our dragon, like if you look at Gadouge or something like that, so there's Ollie. Love Ollie. So if you look at like that raid, then we want to discuss what is the intent there, right? And these things are going to, in many cases, serve multiple masters. But it's okay. If it's an open world target, then we know it can be zerged. All right, that leads to a nice discussion of like, how do we mitigate some of the zerging? You know, what tools can we use and what tools do we not want to use, right? Like rather than just have it be like FTE locked to this, like these groups or this raid or whatever. Do we leave it open and then we're mitigating some of the zerging with more of a focus on AoEs or other factors, making sure that the effects of the AoE or other factors aren't things that can then be griefed so that you can't like zerg it with. So like a good example of griefable would be every time a player dies, it adds a new monster to the fight. Well, then you can grief the shit out of it, right? Okay, so AoEs for something like that tend to be pretty good because it's all right, you got to bring your healing with you, or you've got to be able to bring whatever mitigation with you. Do we care if it gets zerged ultimately? We tune it for like 2 groups. Let's agree. All right. So we got to pick that number. Is it 2 groups? Is it 4 groups? Whatever. So we say, okay, it's tuned for 2 groups with this sort of power level in terms of gearing and blah, blah, blah. Ability to sustain DPS or ability to sustain X amount of damage coming in. Then what happens when it dies? You know, is it, oh man, it's dropping 4 of a list of 16 of the best items in a whole game, and that's why your whole 60 level existence has been building up to this moment to kill this guy to hopefully get one of those items? Or is it, you know, it drops a couple of items that are as good as different rares, but now you don't have to go actually sit and camp those rare items, or there's some items that are a bit better. Are there trade skill components? I think we used the example in the past of you kill this dragon and now its heart stays there and it's a forge that can be used by any trade skillers that come up and, you know, have the skill to use that forge, and so it provides an opportunity for everybody. With Gadouge, does it change pricing levels within Night Harbor? You know, the Dust Dragon that's been terrorizing all of the traders that have been coming through the desert is now dead for X amount of time. So it changes prices in Night Harbor. Does it change all the prices or just certain prices? Does it make ore nodes more available while he's dead? So anytime he's not dead and he's back sort of on cycle, then everybody's kind of hoping somebody kills the dragon because it pushes those prices back down and makes those ore nodes more available. And then maybe while he's dead, there are certain other encounters that spawn during that time that are of different level ranges. Also, fewer dust storms. right? Fewer sandstorms while he's down, right? So it's like trying to look at some of that. Okay, so that's with a world boss. So the world boss has world impact. And so everybody gets a little something out of it. And then it's like, okay, what's the spawn cycle on it? What feels good? But that's going to be different than, say, a triggered boss. And that triggered boss could be anything from like the treasure map concept all the way through something like Pustulax. With a Pustulax, we saw like, I had just put that in as an experiment to see if I could get the mud actions to work and spawn them. There wasn't a lot of consideration on like, hey, the scepters, are dropping here and there's nothing else to farm or kill around it. So now you got high levels that are just kind of sitting on the spot and they can solo the scepter, the trigger droppers, and so then that's not fun gameplay for the people that are camping there, and the rarity is such that they're spending 16 hours sitting there with nothing to do. It's like, shit. Okay, yeah. It's obvious looking back, but again, Pustulax was just in because I was screwing with the trigger mechanism. I had handed that off and said, hey, make this guy, I was thinking, here's some ideas for the abilities or whatever, make it happen. And then it's just the abilities, those of you that have fought Pustulax, I would say like 75% of the abilities weren't even working the way they should, right? So it's like... So we want to go through and have a nice inventory of the different encounter types that we have. We want to have a good discussion on like what that means in terms of itemization or rewards. We want to have a good discussion on what that means in terms of, are there other world benefits, or does it trigger different content so that when something's down, new content's available, so it's not just a zero-sum game. We want to talk about naturally competitive conflict for those and what that means, right? So we've just been kind of like, it's one of the 15 contexts that Ollie's brain's in at a given time related to M&M. And same for me. So, yeah. Anyway, does that make sense? If not, sorry. Is housing available in Keeper's Bite yet, or is it coming near future? A good point. I need to get the rest of the housing volumes set up in Night Harbor. It's mostly the harbor that's left. Maybe some in the bins. Then we got to do Underdocks. Keeper's Bite needs to be set up still. But those are all kind of the same layout of house. So that should happen pretty quick. Maybe I'll get that done this week. It's been on my like things I'm doing this week for like 2 or 3 weeks now. So maybe I just need to get that shit done this week. Yeah. So anyways, going all the way back to the original question, Ruscore 27. I'm hoping folks like you that come in and have not played this kind of thing before, you get in and play. I'm hoping you wind up finding that it kind of scratches the itch that you've been having for classic WoW. We've had a lot of interest from classic WoW people. I've actually been over this last year, I've been very shocked. So, yeah. Ruscore needs a beta invite. Oh, yeah. Robot, there's a lack of content for level 60 players in game. Player base is dropping every day, week. Can you please re-add rates to the game so we have something to do? Lack of content is not fun. Then, yeah, I mean, you guys are in beta. Lots of people are bored with the game. You're in beta. Stop playing for a while. We hope to see you at EA or whenever we put this stuff in, but like, we're not going to drop everything and reprioritize just because of that message. It's okay. It's okay to stop playing in beta. It happens in every beta I've ever run. Usually a lot faster. So we're going to be, like I just said in the last bit, you may have just come in. You may have just come in. So if you did, run back, probably starting the VOD at like 15 minutes in. Those of you that have like 500 hours in as well, and you're like, you know, running out of stuff to do, or you want to just, it's going to happen. One of the things that we can't do is just be like, oh shit, we got to drop everything because these folks are